and welcome to the History Inquirer. Today we will continue where we left off last time with the battles of Trenton and Princeton and Washington's famous crossing the Delaware River. So that said, let's get started. In December 1776, as Washington's army sat on the west bank of the Delaware River, many of their enlistments about to expire, with freezing temperatures, the cause of American independence seemed lost. Morale was very low after their defeats and casualties suffered at New York and the retreat across New Jersey. And at this point, on December 19th, that author Thomas Paine, who was traveling with Washington's army, wrote the words, "These are the times that try men's souls," in his work titled The American Crisis, which was read to Washington's army on December 23rd, 24th, 1776. And what Washington needed was a victory against the enemy that would restore morale, hope, and reignite the fire of rebellion, freedom, and liberty. Bring some life back into his army. Thus, 2 days later, on Christmas night, he and his men crossed the icy, frigid Delaware River and made a surprise attack on British and Hessian forces at Trenton through the snow and biting cold, and won the day. What makes this feat even more amazing is that they did this during a severe winter storm of wind, rain, hail, snow, and sleet during the black of night, and then marched 10 miles to Trenton, and many of the men were without shoes and were wearing uniforms that by this point had worn thin. Can you imagine? I mean, be one of those soldiers, like, okay, so you want me to go over here and do what? In this kind of weather? I don't know. Anyways, at dawn, Washington and his men arrived on the outskirts of the town. The American force was divided into two groups. One led by Major General Nathaniel Greene to attack from the north, and one led by Major General John Sullivan to attack from the west. The Hessians, under the command of Colonel Johann Rall, were worn out after fighting skirmishes and being harassed by American militia. They were taken completely by surprise when Washington's army attacked and in the end were overwhelmed. The roar of the cannons and the sharp crack of musket fire, the shouts and yells of the men woke the unsuspecting garrison. Colonel Johann Rall was mortally wounded in the fighting and surrendered to General Washington before his death. The British had 905 casualties, with 800 either missing or captured. The Americans, on the other hand, had only 5, and all of whom were wounded. The problem for Washington was that the enlistment period for many of his men was about to expire on December 31st, so Washington offered them a $10 bonus. Woohoo! And many chose to stay for 6 more weeks. Now, $10 might not seem like that much, but you remember that is back then, not in today's money. So, anyways, on December 30th, 1776, Washington crossed the Delaware River again from Pennsylvania to New Jersey to occupy Trenton. Washington placed a delaying force of riflemen between Trenton and Princeton on the road there, under the command of General Matthias Alexis Roche de Fermoy. But he was relieved of command due to drunkenness. He had a little too much to drink there. And Colonel Edward Hand took over. The riflemen would fight a running battle down the road to Trenton with the British under General Charles Cornwallis slowing them down in order for Washington to prepare an adequate defense. Or a welcoming committee for the British. Washington placed his men along Assunpink Creek, putting the creek and the relatively narrow bridge between them and the advancing British Army. At around 5 p.m. on Thursday, January 2nd, 1777, Cornwallis reached the creek and attempted to cross several times to engage the Americans, but were unsuccessful. The Americans inflicted heavy casualties on the British, pushing them back. As night fell, General Cornwallis ordered the attack to halt until morning, believing Washington to be trapped between the British Army and the Delaware River. However, Washington, the old fox, as is known by the British, would prove him wrong again. When at midnight, he ordered his troops to march southeast and around the British Army undetected to attack the British garrison at Princeton. British forces under Charles Malhood were marching south from Princeton to meet up with General Cornwallis. Washington, after spotting them around Clark's Farm, sent troops under Hugh Mercer to check it out. Mercer and his men soon came under fire from the British, who were behind a fence. Mercer was wounded, and Washington sent troops under John Cadwalader to back them up. However, as his men were still green and inexperienced, they quickly were repulsed, forced retreat. Though they fought well. General Washington then moved in with his main army to rally his men, reinforce, and he ended up forcing the outnumbered British to retreat back to Frog Hollow and the grounds of the College of New Jersey, now known as Princeton University, where they were again defeated. The British Army, not Washington. Afterwards, Washington and his men would march to Morristown, New Jersey, where they would make camp for the winter, the morale greatly boosted by the victories at Trenton and Princeton. Thus, an army the British thought they had defeated had turned the tables and defeated them. Through all these battles, the Americans proved that while they could be beaten, they could not, would not be destroyed. They would not give up. They demonstrated their courage, steadfastness, determination, cunning, and resolve. These encounters set the stage for future battles, future victories at Saratoga, Yorktown, and the eventual triumph of American independence. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the New Jersey campaign. As we reflect on these battles, let's remember the path to liberty was neither straight or easy, but marked by courage, sacrifice, and the enduring hope for a better future. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time on History Inquirer, which will probably be next year. As we'll all be celebrating Christmas in a day or two, I also like to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas. And now, I shall leave you with the words of Thomas Paine in The American Crisis as I read the first paragraph. These are times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us. At the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to set a proper price upon its goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated. Britain, with an army to enforce her tyranny, has declared that she has a right not only to tax, but to bind us in all cases whatsoever. And if being bound in that manner is not slavery, then there is not such a thing as slavery upon earth. Even the expression is impious, for so unlimited a power can belong only to God. And that ends the first paragraph of The American Crisis by Thomas Paine. Once again, thank you all for watching. Have a very Merry Christmas. And I'll see you all next time on History Inquirer. Thank you.